As the founder of Living Future Foundation, I wanted to create an integrated environment of energy systems, food systems, and building systems. And so I met with Ben Falk from Whole Systems Design, and it was clear that the fit was just right for him to design the master plan for the Perennial food system. And as a result, these three components on the Teal Farm Center property are beautifully integrated.
We were able to spend almost a full year researching the plants, the species, and the agricultural systems that are likely to be most adaptive and resilient to the specific climate conditions of the northeastern United States. So we were able to pull back for almost a full year and ask the question, what is an adaptive, high-performing farm ecosystem in the face of climate change and peak oil? And there's graphic materials throughout the master plan that highlight what the unfolding of this farm ecosystem can be expected to look like over these years 1 to 100. Kind of a choose your own adventure manual for whoever might be stewards of this farm in the future. It can go in various directions, but the value of the infrastructure, the springboard of this ecosystem is laid out. The shape of the land has been carved before the plantings were done. Early on, we've reshaped the landscape to give us the maximum benefit. And now what we have is an optimized land shape to both access and store solar energy, capture as much solar energy from the east, south, and west as possible, and then store it in the form of stone and water. The wrapping around of this berm here and stonework allow for a highly protected, highly productive garden space near the house. And so what that earth working and stoneworking does is allows a longer growing season and more productive growing season. We get the benefits of being up in the mountains, but the advantages of an optimized microclimate that behaves more like a warmer, more productive site further down in the large valley. From here, you can really get a sense of this terraforming in action, and not only how the land's been shaped, but how it's been planted to add to that wind buffering. The wind all comes out of the mountains here, and this gives us protection into this area in a big way in the yard. The area has been planted into a wide variety of nectar-producing flowering plants, promoting honey production and bee health at every opportunity possible. The microclimate optimization allows an increased use of this space and also increased productivity for all the plants that are planted here. We're looking at 2 white oak family trees. These have actually edible nuts, low tannin nuts. They serve as windbreak, they're soil builders over the long haul, they're timber trees over the long haul, but they really represent the backbone of the agricultural system and human habitat system that's planted here, which is in nut trees. So these are trees that live for hundreds of years. They offer yields year after year after year over multiple generations without anyone needing to fertilize them. Imagine a cow that's offering you, fat and protein every year, but you never have to feed it. That's really what a nut tree does. This is the 5th year of the seaberry crop here at Teal Farm. The nitrogen fixing plant, so it gives more back into the soil than it takes. Most of those plants don't also give us a highly valuable nutrient yield, yet this plant does. It's loaded in essential fatty acids, actually very high in super beneficial fats, and it's loaded in vitamin E, vitamin C, and many, many micronutrients. As far as I know, Teal Farm has the most significant seaberry crop infrastructure in New England, and if not the United States. Both culinary and medicinal possibilities exist for this potent food medicine.
The seaberry has become one of our favorite crops here at the farm, and we think holds some of the most promise for further development and growth in this particular area. It tastes a lot like passion fruit, pineapple, and orange all combined. And we've developed a way of processing it so that all of the amazing micronutrients that are in it, including the vitamin E rich seed, is made available in the juice and is very easily absorbable by the body.
Looking east, we look at the spine in the Green Mountain Range across this pond that's been here for quite a long time. It's a huge habitat value. It's beautiful in the morning light. The way the sun comes up over the mountains and actually bounces across the pond helps with the plant productivity in this area on this east-facing slope. Blueberry, seaberry, buffalo berry. This is all essentially a small-scale berry farm terraced up this east-facing slope. Here's a great example of multifunctional edible landscaping using vertical space intensively. This is all hardy kiwi. This house is essentially a kiwi arbor. We have this fantastic food called the hardy kiwi, which is actually really better than the fuzzy kiwi from New Zealand that grows in these climates if you give it a nice home. And so all of this is growing up really well done stainless steel hardware arbor built onto the building in a way that will last for a very long time. So there's a major kiwi yield here that's just starting to bear this year its first fruits and will bear here for decades. Schisandra berry was planted here about 5 years ago. We planted this, and it's a fantastic example of a super nutrient dense fruit that bears decade upon decade. This is one of the select few fruits in the Chinese pharmacopoeia that has all of the flavors that food represents embodied in one fruit. Here we're on the West Terraces among the rows of successional windbreaks of poplar and nut pine. Looking back east, we planted these trees 5 years ago, and they're really taking their own now. They're 40 feet tall. They're starting to form the backbone of this windbreak, building soil, mulched in place to form a thick hedge that then the nut pines will take over from that state into being an edible, multifunctional windbreak. So there's a larger agroforestry system here that these are part of, that the bones of which are now in place. The long-term part is in place. By terracing this area that was formerly a slope, now the water, the precious water that lands on this site, has to slow down, spread out, and actually sink. So we're getting percolation where before there was just runoff, mostly runoff. So that gives us drought proofing, and it gives us nutrients that we would otherwise lose because water contains so many nutrients. There's an assortment of a few dozen heirloom variety apples that are planted all in this upper area. They represent, the heirloom orchard here represents significant apple diversity. There's a quince in the upper orchards at Teal Farm. They will bear for many years to come as well. They represent, some of the minor fruits, of which there's a couple dozen varieties that we've planted here at Teal Farm. This field is planted as an agroforestry, specifically a silvopasture system. So it's planted as a woodland. So these trees are intentional. They're not weeds in the field. They're actually planted for the soil building value, for shade, which all livestock need in this climate to really thrive, as windbreak, and also especially as a nutrient-rich fodder for the livestock that would be in these fields. This master plan is really a resource for many systems that aren't even yet established, but can be established according to the specific goals. Whoever takes this on as a project there's still plenty of room for them to apply their own creativity and their own vision onto this landscape to extend the infrastructure and work that's already been established and is now growing.
The remarkable thing about what's been accomplished here, and what I'm most pleased about, is the immense variety of species that are now thriving at this site. Over 200 species and over 2,000 total plants in the system. Because of the thoroughness and visionary nature of the design, there is a wealth of perennial food and fuel plants here to learn from, and to propagate far into the future.